Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the moment of truth. Somebody get a mop and a bucket because it's about to get messy. Jada Pinkett's back in the news again, and as we all know, that's not a good sign because it never is. Will Smith critically damaged his career by doing a stupid over-the-top stunt to, some say, defend her honor, quote-unquote. Now, some people have said that Jada was so offended by Chris Rock's Oscar joke, and they claim that that justifies Will Smith making himself look like a moron in front of the world and overshadowing a night that belonged to a lot of people other than himself. As I pointed out last year, that Oscars was going to be Will Smith getting his own statuette, and that was going to make him Hollywood royalty, at least it would have if he hadn't decided to just completely and thoroughly overshadow that event. Now, let me go ahead and say right now, nothing Chris Rock did justified Will Smith putting on such a display, at least not in front of the cameras. Some people tried to make Will Smith's self-own seem like a win, but reality always has the last word. The white people who applauded him that night abandoned him literally the very next morning. None of those white celebrities or the online chatterati were sticking up for him when the Academy banned him. Will Smith was out there by himself, all alone, being used as a human piñata by all these white media outlets and a lot of the same folks who had been applauding him just a few hours earlier. And that also includes his hood rat wife. As it turns out, we now have Jada Pinkett going right back to the white media and dishing the dirt. She's revealed that she and Will have been separated for several years now, at least since 2016. So for the last 7 years, they've been on the outs. You get that? That means when Will Smith pulled that stunt last year, he damaged his career, perhaps fatally, all for a woman who he doesn't live with and hasn't lived with for 7 years. So for all the people trying to make it seem like those two were just so close and he was sticking up for her because she's his dear wife and they're in it together, you now have confirmation from Jada herself that they're not close at all. They weren't even close last year and haven't been close in several years. Now, nobody knew that these two were separated, though all the intelligent people were saying that clearly their marriage had the smell of grisly death all over it because of her numerous public emasculations of Will. Here he was trying to put on a happy face and trying to smile through the humiliation and still saying that those two were going to be together forever. And it was all so fake, and it was clearly an act. It was obviously a front, and we could see right through it. Will Smith is a broken man trying to hold on to a woman who isn't even worth it. The people who are in denial about it, it's time to face the facts. And speaking of facts, not only did Will Smith wreck his career to show his love for a woman who doesn't love him and hasn't even lived with him in several years, but for the people who claim Chris Rock's joke was just so offensive towards Jada, and that was the tipping point, and that justified what Will did, well, maybe you should have asked Jada Pinkett what she thought. Because she did an interview with People magazine, and she talked about it. Talking about Chris Rock's joke, she said, quote, "I mean, that's what comedians do. I would just have to say that I am not really here to make any judgment on how people decide to express themselves and express their art. I'll say that several times I've had my feelings hurt, for sure. I've had my feelings hurt a lot by Chris, but at the end of the day, too, being in the spotlight, it comes with the territory." Now, did you get that? All the lipstick alley Jezebel types and anyone else who tried to cape for Jada, saying that Will Smith was just sticking up for his wife who had been grievously offended. Does this sound like someone who's grievously offended? Does this sound like someone who was offended at all? She's saying Chris was just doing what comedians do, and that she's not here to make any judgment on how people decide to express themselves, and that it comes with the territory. But that's not all. She also said she thought that the slap was some sort of skit when she saw it. So she didn't even know Will was going to do it. Quote, "I thought, this is a skit. I was like, there's no way that Will hit him. It wasn't until Will started to walk back to his chair that I even realized it wasn't a skit. I was in as much of a fog as anybody else in the room that night." The first thing she said to Will afterward was, "Are you okay? I wasn't quite sure what was going on." So she's making it totally clear she doesn't sanction what Will did at all. In fact, she had no knowledge of it. And nowhere does she say, well, you know what, he did it for me, and you gotta understand what Will did. She did not say anything even close to, well, people need to understand why. Instead, she was saying she was as shocked as everyone else, and that when he sat down, she had to ask him if he was okay. Yeah, ask him if he's okay, as if to ask, what's wrong with you? You notice how she doesn't say that she was in shock about Chris Rock's joke, or that Will had to ask her if she was okay. She's disavowing Will Smith. She's disavowing the slap. And it was all totally predictable that she would do this. So, for the remaining dead-enders of the Jada Pinkett fan club, please explain to me how Will Smith did this for her when she says Chris Rock's jokes came with the territory and she didn't actually think Will was going to hit him and she had to ask him if he was okay and she was as shocked as everyone else. Jada saw what the reaction was from those white celebrities they hobnob with and those white media moguls who they depend on for every crumb of their daily bread, and she wanted to make it clear she had no knowledge what was going on and she had nothing to do with it and she didn't approve of it. She's using weasel words to be sure, but what she's definitely not doing is sticking up for Will Smith, even though some say that he had been sticking up for her. Where's the loyalty at? Where's the devotion on her part? She doesn't say a word to stick up for her husband at all. He destroyed his career and he didn't even get a thank you. She doesn't try to justify or defend it. She also revealed that when there were rumors that she and Will were going to break up years ago, Chris Rock tried to holler at her. Now, why would she reveal something like that during the course of the interview? Why does she keep airing the dirtiest of laundry? I mean, Chris Rock wasn't the one who put this out in the streets, and neither did Will Smith. What possible purpose does a statement like that even serve, especially in a conversation like this? Jada Pinkett is letting everybody know that she's still pining for Tupac, a man who's been dead for 25 years. And she's also inviting young males over to the house for sex, and Chris Rock was trying to get at her. But of course, the Tupac part, that happens to be particularly painful, mainly because it means that Will Smith is losing the battle for Jada Pinkett's rotten little heart to a man who's been dead for over 25 years. This woman is so messy it's not even worth a discussion, and yet we have to discuss it because people have been so blinded by emotion, blinded by bias, blinded by the stars, and we can't operate like that. A number of people didn't like my taking Will Smith to task last year, not the least of which being YouTube, who attacked my channel. But here we are a year and a half later and we got Jada Pinkett proving everything that I said completely right. Will Smith has been psychologically castrated by her. And his crying on stage after his little display, it shows that he's emotionally unstable. That's because Will Smith is in an abusive relationship, and Jada's the one doing the abusing. Now, some people tried to give her and Will the benefit of the doubt. I, of course, wasn't one of them, and it's because I know people, I know personalities, and hers is ratchet. See, it's easy to stick up for Will slapping Chris at the Oscars because that was just one incident on one particular night. But I already knew that there were a number of humiliations that Will had endured from Jada that played into that incident. And as I said last year, she was just going to keep on doing it, which she has. She wasn't going to stop. And I noticed that these online sewers like Lipstick Alley, Jezebel, some of the hood rats and dusty dudes online who have been sticking up for her, they're all real quiet now. All of a sudden, cheerleading for the slap ain't what it used to be. See, what's happening is people are trying to figure out how to simultaneously explain that Jada was a woman worth throwing away a huge lucrative Hollywood career for, while at the same time admitting that she's a moron for still doing these public stunts, for still hurting her husband, hurting her children, hurting her own reputation. It would be one thing if she had just stopped after the slap, but she didn't, which I already said of course she wasn't going to. And now you got these people who are still having to try to defend her afterwards for the next stupid thing she does, and the next, until it becomes obvious what I and a lot of other people have been saying. The only common denominator on all this stuff is Jada Pinkett. That's the reason why it was a stupid idea for Will Smith to call himself committing that fiasco last year. She is the problem. She's a walking tabloid, and that's never a good thing. So the people who were cheerleading for her last year, go ahead and tell us all how virtuous she is now and how she deserves to be protected. See, for Jada Pinkett, protection and respect are a one-way street. She demands her fragile ego be protected, but she takes a dump on Will Smith every chance she gets. No matter how hard you try, you simply cannot rectify her hood rat behavior with the prior claims that she's worthy of respect. The two don't go together. I said she wasn't worth sniffing at, much less wrecking one's career for, and I was right. But then again, you don't need a crystal ball to see the obvious. I haven't said anything really about this whole fiasco since last summer, mainly because A, I don't like talking about entertainment or actors or celebrity and such, because black people don't handle subjects like that very well. We tend to lose focus whenever we focus on celebrity and gossip and such. But also because B, I could tell that this little relationship was on self-destruct. The way that Will Smith was straining to smile through his pain while he was talking about entanglements. That marriage was clearly a hollowed-out husk of whatever it used to be. More so when you look at the way that Jada acts and the way that he dresses. It's just a circus over there. And apparently Jada's the ringmaster. So their marriage is on death watch now, and because Jada doesn't have a career to speak of, I said last year she was going to keep on doing these public stunts to humiliate Will because he allows her to, and because she doesn't respect him, and because this is all she can do to get anybody to acknowledge her existence. Jada Pinkett never wanted to be with Will. That's why it was stupid for him to call himself sticking up for her. She's made it excruciatingly clear she doesn't respect him. And at the same time, she's nothing without him. Trust and believe, if these two were divorced as opposed to merely separated as they are right now, she would still be doing this mess. Sure, she has contempt for him because his star is still shining while hers burned out 20 years ago, but she's also desperate to be noticed too. That's a dangerous combination. Jada Pinkett suffers from massive amounts of insecurity, and it is dangerous to be linked to people who are insecure. Insecure people are 100% guaranteed to attack other people around them in order to cover up their own insecurities. They try to cut other people down in order to try to make themselves look bigger. That's what she's been doing to Will Smith all these years. He got himself banned from the Oscars for 10 years because of this. He made himself into a pariah in the industry. His own wife throws him under the bus. And why did he do it? For what? For a woman who humiliates him, disrespects him, and emasculates him? Now, because I know some of the folks in the comments and elsewhere don't listen well, I never said I like Chris Rock or support him. I don't. I was going in on Chris Rock back when some other folks were bigging him up. But this isn't about Chris Rock per se. And no, just because Chris Rock says something stupid doesn't mean that you damage your own career. It's not about Chris Rock, it's about protecting your own interest, and Will Smith didn't do that. Only interest that he had was trying to put forward a front. Everybody knew how Jada had disrespected him, and for him to go so overboard to try to play white knight in public, it was pathetic. And now with Jada's latest interview, there's a lot of other people who are humiliated now. I don't care about Will Smith or Chris Rock. Neither one of them has done anything for anyone other than themselves. But let's be honest here. It's asinine to try to make the slap come off as chivalrous. Will Smith was super simping, and everyone knew it. As I said last year, she did not act as a woman who deserves protection. A woman who honors her husband deserves protection. Now tell me, when has she ever done that? Is she doing it now? While there were a lot of hood rats who were sticking up for the slap because they liked the idea of someone, especially a black man, being abused as a means to get back at them for a black woman, there were also a lot of dusty dudes going along with it because there's no cure for stupid. Though there were a number of people who were honestly deceived about all this, but I don't understand why. Yes, Chris Rock deserves our disdain, but this isn't about him. Will Smith, on the night that he got an Oscar, chose to sully the moment of his highest career achievement with an asinine attempt to fool the world into thinking that he wasn't some castrated simp and that his wife wasn't some emasculating two-timing skank. Will Smith's heard the jokes about how he's been cucked in his own home. He's seen the memes. His kids have surely talked about it. I'm sure he's gotten phone calls from friends who ask him if he's all right. He's fully aware of what his reputation is now, or rather he's aware of what his wife has made his reputation into. And because of that, he was desperate to keep up appearances. He and Jada have been described as a power couple. That had become his identity. He was completely and thoroughly invested in that idea. It was a crucial part of his brand. The only problem is that, like Barack and Michelle Obama, it was the husband who was the only reason they were a power anything. And clearly Jada resents that. Will Smith could have married anyone, and the headlines would have been the same, though I doubt the lack of respect in his own home would have been the same. In fact, it's because he married a woman who had previously gotten a little bit of fame and lost it that he's even in this mess. If Jada Pinkett's last name was Stevens or Jones or whatever, would anyone be making a big deal about her? Of course not. And if she wasn't a washed-up has-been actress, would she be acting out and constantly engaged in these attention-whoring stunts? Of course not. She's taking what's supposed to be private, intimate details about their marriage and their relationship and even their sex life, and she's putting it out there for the world to see. Why? Because this is the only way Jada can get anyone to talk about her. Where are her movies at? Has she even been able to get a cameo appearance on a cable TV show? No. This is all she's got, castrating her husband for white media attention. And this is who people say was worth Will wrecking his career over? Look, whether you like Chris Rock or not is immaterial. We have a lot of black folks who say and do stupid things. You don't throw away your career over them, and you don't damage yourself or your interest for them. If someone slights you, then you strike back in a way that harms them, not yourself. Will Smith took all that anger that he was feeling towards Jada, all of the abuse and frustration, and he directed it at Chris Rock. And even that wouldn't have been so bad, except he did it on camera in front of the world. Simply put, Will Smith played himself. And the folks who decided that they were going to go along with a certain narrative, well, Jada played you too. Just like Will, nobody was fooled. People chose to go along with it. Will Smith is damaged goods in the movie industry now. He's betting everything on the next Bad Boys movie, but nobody's going to be able to look at him as a tough guy when we've all seen videos of him smiling through his pain as he's being punked out by his own wife, and that it keeps happening over and over again. Will Smith's star has already dimmed before now. He didn't need any more obstacles in his way, let alone self-imposed obstacles, but he's emotional. And when a person is driven by their emotions, they always destroy themselves in the end. But for the folks like Jezebel and anyone else who really ought to know better, I won't rub your faces in it, but I will tell you I was right. And the people who supported Will slapping Chris Rock on the grounds that he had an obligation to stick up for her, I'll bet those folks are probably feeling like they got slapped in the face. Some of us tried to tell people not to stick their necks out for Jada. We were warning people, do not defend what Will did. He was in the wrong. Full stop. And in the end, Jada threw Will under the bus along with her defenders. And for the folks who wound up red-faced with embarrassment, well, unfortunately, there's going to be more stunts like this from her. She's not going to stop. This is the only thing that can get the cameras on her, so she's going to keep hitting that button over and over again. When Will finally goes ahead and announces that they're getting divorced, I'm not going to celebrate because there's nothing celebratory about it, though I would say it'd be a good thing if he got out of this toxic relationship. Though he's going to be spending a lot more time trying to mend his relationship with the movie industry. So once again, hopefully for the last time, Will Smith was wrong, and Jada's reminding everybody why. You can't protect the honor of a woman who never had any to begin with. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Dario Anderson, Andrew Lewis, Wesley Monroe, Going Down Slow, and Montrez Braxton. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.